Hi, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Between the Lines Book Talk. Michelle is out doing some productions this month, and Rhonda actually has a haunted house that she does this big deal for Halloween, so it's just me today. But I'm really excited because I have some really cool people, and I've known Jonahthan, and I've been following Apryl. So I bugged Jonahthan and said, I'd like to have you guys on. You know, they're kind of like a dynamic duo. They both write a lot of their own stuff. Apryl is a USA Today bestseller, and she has a few titles like the Ghost Files, the Man Horse series, the Coven series. Jonahthan has the Nephilim Chronicles, the Thrive Saga, and they have all these other books besides that. But I thought it was kind of interesting today because we see so many people come together and collaborate on a series, not just a book or an anthology, but a series. And I saw that they decided to collaborate on the Decadia series, which is steampunk. And so I just thought, that would be fun to talk about today. And so let's start out with Jonahthan. Why don't you just say hello and just give a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go to Apryl. I guess maybe let's do this. Jonahthan, you start out, and why was it you decided to collaborate with Apryl?
Oh, that's an easy question. So I chose Apryl because of her level of expertise just when it comes to writing and the way that she's able to crank out like really good pieces of literature one after the other. Because I knew if I was going to partner with somebody, I didn't want somebody who was going to take, 6 months to write the next section. I wanted somebody who was driven, and I knew Apryl was that right person. And also the level of that she's able to write her own stuff is getting better and better and better. And that's what I was looking for in a partner, somebody who was constantly working on the craft and getting better with each and every book.
Oh, okay. So kind of like riding her coattail a little bit.
Sure, yeah. I don't mind if that's the case. Yeah, for sure.
Well,
I've learned a lot from the way that she writes.
Well, I have to say, I read a couple of your books, and the reason that we became friends is because I know how good of an author you are, and I think Apryl recognized that. So,
thanks.
Yeah. So, Apryl, what do you think? Why did you decide to work with Jonahthan?
Well, I actually didn't read Jonahthan's books until just probably 3 or 4 months before we started writing. I had known him through our publishing house for a while, and I chatted with him for forever. And then this opportunity came up, and I thought, well, let me see what he writes. And so I went in and I read some of his books, and I was like, wow, he can really write. So, that was part of it. And he's been very kind because he hit me up right when I actually got sick. So it did take me a little bit longer to write than what he says. But he's been very kind through the whole sickness, and I appreciate that very, very much, Jonahthan. But when it comes to writing, Jonahthan is brilliant. He really is. He can weave words like you would not believe. And I've learned a lot from him. He's pushed me to look at things a different way. I'm one of those people that when I sit down and write, I don't plot. I don't plan. I don't do outlines, and Jonahthan does. So he's kind of forced me to do that a little bit, and it's actually helped my writing a great deal. So he's just an awesome person. He's a fabulous writer, and I'm honored to know him.
Oh, Apryl. I wasn't coming here this morning expecting this. I'm going to one single tear is going to come out or something.
Yeah. You saw it here, guys.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Apryl, actually, it's really funny because that you're here today, because when I first started out 3 or 4 years ago, I decided to venture into the party you know, the book parties, and you had a release, and I actually was part of one of your release parties. Now, I had no idea what the hell I was doing, and you were very kind. So thank you for that.
I think we've all been there.
So yeah, you know, I guess we all have to start.
Do you remember what book it was for?
What?
Do you remember which book release it was for?
No, I don't. No, I don't.
No?
I think it was one of her ghost. Might have been her
Those file books?
file book, maybe. No.
I know exactly what it was.
Do you?
Which one was
It wasn't an actual book party. I remember it was for one of my blog fests that I do. I do 2 a year, and Denise actually did a post for that.
Yeah.
I remember everybody.
Because I was,
It's like blocking there, like it's still.
Well, I was so new to that. I was like, I have no clue what I'm doing here. And, you know, and I think I kept asking you questions. What am I doing? I don't know how to do this. So yeah, I just.
April's like, yeah, I remember you.
But, okay. Well, why don't you guys tell us a little bit about the Decadia series? I mean, you guys decided to come together. Did somebody already have that in mind, or did you guys just say, hey, you want to do something together and brainstorm after that? I mean, what was the inspiration behind this actual steampunk series?
Unlike Apryl, who has a good memory, I have a horrible memory. So I'm trying to remember back to like the initial conversation. The only thing I can remember is I think we agreed on doing steampunk because it would be fun and be cool. And then like what Apryl was saying, I don't think we had like a very specific plan for what we wanted. We kind of just had like a loose kind of guideline. And then the way that we write is Apryl will write something, and then I'll go back. And if I really feel like something needs to be changed, then I'll make changes, and then I'll write my section. And then we go back and forth like that. But do you remember, Apryl, like why we decided like on characters or the exact storyline?
I think we were actually chatting one day because of a post that we saw in our publisher's Facebook group, and we decided that we wanted to write together. I don't remember who asked to. I honestly don't. But I do remember we just started throwing out ideas, and we both wanted to do steampunk. And I think I said Yanez and Jonahthan said dragons.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I'm pretty sure I asked you. I think I asked you if you wanted to co-author, but.
Yeah, that's pretty much when people ask me what it's about, I say Atlantis, dragons, airships, pirates, steampunk.
Yeah.
Those are the 5 words that I use. And people are like, what? Let me see this book.
Yeah. Well, that's quite a combination. I mean, so it's fantasy steampunk a little bit than if you got the dragons in there. And I'm a dragon girl. I love dragons.
It's more fantasy driven than it is urban steampunk.
Okay, so the setting.
I think it's really cool. I really appreciate and value the characters that we built, like the crew that's on the ship. They're so different, and everybody has like their own agenda, and it's been fun.
Well, how do you guys go about breaking up the characters? I mean, it's like, okay, I want to be this character, and I want to be this character, and then when you write, you kind of like it would be or is it just you just write? How do you do that?
We write. I mean, it's not like Jonahthan takes a character and I take a character, which is what makes it really great, because when people read the book, they can't tell who wrote it because we both write every character.
Oh.
And it blends really well.
Yeah, that's something that our level of writing, sometimes I'll go back and I can't remember who wrote what section. I was like, is this Apryl or me? And I have to actually like read more than a few paragraphs. I get like a page. I'm like, oh, that was Apryl who wrote this. So that's been fun how our writing has kind of like melded together naturally. We didn't really have, that's not something that we intentionally had to focus on, that we sounded like each other. It just worked that way.
Yeah, and we didn't come up with a list of characters either. We just sat down and we started writing, and the characters just kind of wrote themselves into the book. Because I would get this partner and be like, who is this person? And John says, oh, I just added a character in. Or I do the same thing to him.
Or sometimes, because after we write a section, we email each other like, here you go, I hope you can get our character out of this scenario or this situation. Like, we won't write ourselves into a corner, but we'll set it up for the next person, like something like big or epic is about to happen. Like, here, have fun.
Mm-hmm. Because I'm horrible at action scenes. I truly am. So I will set up this entire mess for Jonahthan, and sometimes it takes him a day or two to figure out how to get the characters out of the mess that I put them in, because I can't write action. I can't. It's horrible. But he does really well with it, and he comes up with these unique and brilliant ways to get them out of situations I would never have dreamed of.
It's been a lot of fun. Like, I always look forward to writing my own books, but in a different kind of way. I look forward to writing what Apryl and I are working on, because I just feel like not only is it a collaboration, but I'm learning in the process, and it's exciting to see like what happens to the characters, like what she's come up with.
Well, I can tell by just listening to you guys that it's just been a whole lot of fun, you know, and it could have easily been the other way around. I mean, you could have been with somebody that was like a control freak, and even though they wanted to collaborate, they still wanted total control. But, you know, so you guys sound like you have a really good balance, you know, and you're just kind of going with the flow and kind of challenging each other. So, you know, that sounds like a whole lot of fun. And I just bet that it really did spill over into this book, you know. But was there any challenges at all when what was the biggest challenge in doing this? Was it the expanse of the country between, I mean, one's on the East Coast and the other one's on the West Coast? Was it the time, or what was your biggest challenge?
I'm really trying to think of, like, I'm not just saying it wasn't challenging just to say that. I'm trying to think of what might have been the hardest part.
I think, honestly, the first book we did really well on, timeline-wise. The second book, I got sick. So there were times when 3 or 4 weeks would go by and I wouldn't write. And I think that was the biggest challenge for me, is because my eyes messed up and I literally couldn't be on the computer for more than 10, 15 minutes every couple days. And for me, that was my biggest challenge. As far as writing goes, I have not had any challenges with Jonahthan whatsoever, because there's something there that I'm like, this doesn't work. I will hit him up in an email on Facebook and I'm like, look, I'm going to change this because it does not work. And if you don't like it, you can always go back and fix it.
Yeah.
And he puts up with me. So
yeah, no, it's worked out well, because I think we're honest with each other too. So if she says like, hey, I don't really feel like something's working, I'm like, that's totally fine. Like, I want our book to be the best it can be. So if you can make it better, go for it. So I have no problem with her going back. Or if she says like, hey, maybe we should write it this way, like, I'm totally fine with that too. And now that we're talking about challenges, I do remember one time that I forgot that Apryl sent me her portion, because we go back and forth, right? So she'll send me her portion of the book and be like, hey, you're up, you're next. And then I'll do vice versa, right? Well, one time, it's only happened once. One time
But you were forgiven because Joe had just been born. I understood. I figured you were, doing the whole baby daddy thing, and I was like, we'll give him some time, give him some daddy paternity leave.
No, I appreciate it. I'm glad you said something, because Apryl had sent me the next portion to write, and I lost it. I didn't see it. She definitely sent it to me because I looked back and I found it. I don't know if I deleted it or what was happening, but we'll let Joe take the fall for that one.
Well, I just know. I kind of know about Apryl vicariously through Jonahthan, and I just know how busy Jonahthan is. And, but I do commiserate with you, Apryl, because I do have my issues with my scoliosis, so for me, if I'm in front of the computer, it better be something important, because I only have so many hours before I can't even do it anymore. So for Jonahthan to put up with you, I'm not surprised. He's a good guy.
But he was very gracious about it. He really was.
That's cool. But, and that's the thing, that's what I tell everybody. If we get involved in something together, it's like, remember to have fun. And I think that's what you guys were able to keep that in mind. Let's make it the best we can, but let's make sure we're having fun too.
Yeah,
so.
This is like our fun project. I feel like if we're feeling pressure or anxiety over this, we're doing something wrong. Because this should be fun. Like, I'll feel pressure and anxiety. The only pressure and anxiety that we have actually is what we put on ourselves.
Yeah.
So if we choose not to do that, then it'd be a good time writing a story.
Yeah. So you guys, your series, can you give us a little bit of background about this series for people who have never heard of this before? A little bit of background or a little description or something, something cool about the stories. Why would somebody who's just listening now, why would they want to pick up this first book?
You want more description than April's 5 words? What did you say, April? Dragons, Atlantis, airships, pirates.
I mean, that's really good. I mean, I would pick it up from there, I mean, is it bad dragons or good dragons? Because I like good dragons.
Well, a little bit of both.
It's something, too, I feel, since we came with our own unique backgrounds in writing, and it's characters that I've never seen before. Like, I'm sure a dragon who can morph into a human and back again, it has been done before somewhere, but I haven't read a story like that yet. And then when you incorporate that kind of character with a captain from the Royal Navy who's lost his command and he's broken because he's seen the death of his best friend, and then you incorporate that with another character who is a drunk medicine man who got randomly picked up by the crew and he's along the way. And then you get picked up from a character who was from Atlantis who's running from his past. I feel like we started kind of story-driven and now it's being character-driven because these characters have come so alive. I feel like if somebody's looking for a new twist on Atlantis, a new twist on dragons, everything that Apryl and I are doing, I haven't read before. I read a lot, so I can't say it doesn't exist somewhere, but I've never read before or heard of a story like this before.
I'm utterly wretched at describing my books. I'm one of those people, you ask me, so what's your book's about? And I'm like, here's the back of the book. Please read it. But I really am terrible. That's why I come with those 5 words. 5 words. You'll pick it up. But he's right that it went from being more story-driven to more character-driven, because when we first started writing the first book, it was all about the story. And by the time we finished the books, the characters had gone from just these descriptions on a piece of paper to almost real people, at least for me. And so whenever I write a book, if I can't look at that character and think, well, this person will be sitting right beside of me and I could be talking to them, it's not a very good character for me. And so that's the kind of characters that we've created. It's people that in my head, yes, it sounds crazy, in my head, I can sit there and talk to for a very long time, because that's how I plot out my stuff. It's all in my head, and I'm sitting here chatting while I'm typing, which is insane. I know, but that's the way I write. The characters go through quite a bit. They go from just this ragtag crew of misfits, just like Jonahthan said, a group of pirates, some Navy people, ex-slavers. It's just a whole lot of different people who are kind of forced to come together to survive dragon attacks, a kraken attack. And you get to watch them grow from that into a bond of friendship and loyalty and family. Because at the heart of the book, it's about family, which is what I think makes it unique. It's not just a spin on dragons or Atlantis. It's at heart a story about family and friendship. And I think that is what draws people to it.
You did a pretty good job of summing up the book for somebody who said she's not good. Yeah, that was really accurate.
Terrible.
I do the same thing.
Yeah, ask me about my man horse series.
Well, you know, Atlantis, that you mentioned Atlantis, and it's really interesting because my saga, and I think, well, Jonahthan read the first book, but I go into this dragon shifting thing also, and I write about Lemuria, which is the sister continent to Atlantis. And, you know, and I read T.A. Barron's latest Atlantis Rising book. And so, you know, Atlantis is really coming back to the forefront again. So I'm kind of curious. Apryl, you said Atlantis. So is there just something about Atlantis that you're fascinated about? Or is it just, you just, hey, I just, everybody else writes about it, I think I got a cool slant on Atlantis?
I learned about it in the 2nd grade, and I have been fascinated with it since the 2nd grade. I've probably read every single book that you can read about it. And I thought to myself, well, since we're going to do fantasy anyway, why not incorporate one of my favorite legends into it? I don't know what it means for Jonahthan, but for me, it's always been a fascination.
No, yeah, it's always cool. I was like exploring the unknown, or what the facts could have been, like the possibilities of reimagining a story that's kind of been turned into myth. So that was fun, going after Atlantis, and then in a way, again, that I haven't seen it portrayed before.
Well, you know, I'm a big believer that, and I don't know if you guys believe this too, but writers, a lot of times when, even Tolkien, when Tolkien wrote Lord of the Rings, he said he was actually writing about the forgotten past. And, you know, I'm a believer that, you know, time happens at the same time, past, present, and future. So, you know, writers have this really strange, uncanny ability to actually channel into, you know, that parallel universe, whatever you want to call it. You know, so for me, I'm looking at it at the metaphysical explanation. So for you two coming together in this book, just flowing out of you the way it did, I mean, it you know, seemed like it was so easy for you, and it was so much fun. So I'm just going to put it out there that you two actually were together in Atlantis, the period of it, and here you are writing about it now, or a section about it, or
yeah,
something.
I'll take it, that works for you.
Yeah, you know.
You never know. One never knows.
Right. So, but I think it's really cool. And so what's happening next? Now you have the first book out, and you're doing the second book. So when do you think that second one will be ready?
I don't think we have. So the first book is out. It's called the Decadia Code. The second book is called The Crucible, and we're already finished writing it. I think we need one more editing round. Does that sound right, Apryl? We'll get it back to us for one more round.
Yes, we just did the first round, sent it back to the editor, and then she'll send it back to us to look over. No big changes, she said, just proofreading mostly. But if I see something, I will change it, and Lori will just have to deal with it. She loves me.
They do. They definitely have a special bond together. Probably you guys have worked on multiple books together now, right?
Mm-hmm. I went through several editors, and I basically said, I'm no longer going to publish unless I get this particular person. And they're like, okay. So, but Lori's fabulous. She really is. I think, yeah, it's one more round. They're looking at cover artists now, I believe, for the design for the new book. They haven't given us a release date, though.
No, I want to say, I know they tried to get books out before Christmas for the Christmas rush. I don't know if that's going to happen with our book, but I would say December to January is a safe bet. We'll see what happens.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well,
and then we got to start working on the third one sometime soon.
Mm-hmm.
Apryl want to start it right away, which I think is a good idea because everything's fresh in our minds. but I asked her if we could hold off until December because I'm working on the third book in my own series that I want to try to get finished before we go into the third book in the Decadia Code.
Wow, so you have 3 books. Is it going to go beyond that, or are you going to let the characters decide, or did you just decide initially that it was going to stop at 3 books?
I don't know. I think 3 books for sure. And then past that, I don't know if we would want to continue or maybe offshoot or something like that. Apryl has said before, though, that we can leave the possibility open for having other of our own books, like with share characters in that world. So I think 3 for sure, and the possibility is open for more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's cool. That's cool. Wow. Okay, so that gives people time to read the first one and hurry up and read it because the second one's coming. And by the time they get the second one, hopefully the third one will be ready to go. So that works out perfectly. So we'll start with Jonahthan. What are you working on right now on your own?
So I have a series called The Dread Novels. Book 1, All the Broken People, is out. And then book 2, book 1, All the Beautiful People, is out. Book 2 comes out December 20th. It's called All the Broken People. And then I'm working on the 3rd book right now, and that one's called The Special Kind of Crazy. And that's the one that I want to finish before we go into the 3rd book in the Decadia series. And then I think that one's going to be a 5-book series. I keep on, it's my own game, my own sick game that I play with myself, is every series that I write, I keep on adding a book. So the Elite series was 3 books, the Nephilim Chronicles was 4, the Dread novels will be 5, and then whatever I write next will be 6 and 7, I'll just keep on going. It's a game, it's like a bet that I have with myself. Every single series that I write, I'll just keep on adding a book and see what happens. Until I can't anymore. We'll see. I don't know how long I can hold that face.
You just hate to give up on all them people, all them different people, those worlds.
I know, it is hard.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
It is hard to say goodbye. I wrote the Elite series and the Nephilim Chronicles and then a standalone book. And I decided then that I was going to change it so all my books revolve in the same world, so I never have to say goodbye to characters. Now I can share characters in between series. And that's perfect what Apryl said too, that we can share characters from the Decadia Code, because I already have an idea how the Decadia Code will work into all my other books. It's going to be an alternate universe. So at some point, characters from my current universe cover maybe this rift, and then we'll see characters from the Decadia Code series too. So that's still kind of up in the air. But yeah, it's all going to mix. Now I never have to say goodbye to characters and just revisit them.
Well, you got it all figured out. I mean, I don't know how you guys do it, but so. Well, what about you, Apryl? I know you got a lot on your plate.
Well, we don't want to discuss deadlines right now. It's not pleasant. But before I go into that, I will say I just finished All the Beautiful People. It's one of the few books that I've actually read since my eyes got all screwy on me. And if you have not read it, you need to. It is a wonderful book, which I did write a review for him on Amazon, but Amazon unfortunately took it down. I never even posted it. Because it's
not that counts. Thank you.
I tried. I tried.
I appreciate it.
But right now I am hard at work on the Ghost Files Volume 4, which has been over a year and a half in the publishing road. Limitless and my editor, I think, are a little panicked at the moment because I had written the book. It was 145,000 words, which once I went through it and took out the worst of it, I think I got it down to like 79. And then I read through it again and decided it was garbage. The book is due to the editor on November 8th. And so last week I threw it all out and started over.
Wow.
So you see Jonathan's face right there. That's probably the same face that Lori had. But I am 40,000 words back into it since last week. So like I told him not to panic. Told the fans not to panic. It's Right now, it will be released in December. They are rushing it. But hopefully it'll be something that the fans won't mind waiting almost 2 years to get. So we'll see what happens there.
Well,
Everything that Apryl just said, though, is a big part of the reason why I decided to ask her, partner her with writing a book. Just the level of production that she's able to hit. I don't think Apryl and I ever talked about writer's block, but I think writer's block is afraid of Apryl. Just as much as she's able to crank out like the product and just the content that she's able just to flow, just to go. Well, right now, didn't you say, I mean, you threw out 100 and, what was it, 100 and some thousand words, and you just wrote another 40,000?
145,000 words over 6 months that I wrote. And it was because I forced myself to write it. With the Ghost Files, I think I did get a little bit of writer's block there because that particular series took up so much of my time for almost 2 years. It was crazy ridiculous because we went from one extreme to another extreme with that particular series. And everybody was just like, oh, you got to get out the next book. You got to get out the next book. You got to get out the next book. So by the time I finished volume 3, I was so burned out on that entire series. I couldn't write. I mean, I literally started it as soon as I sent the manuscript for volume 3 to the publisher. I literally started the 4th book, and I wrote probably 35,000 words within 2 weeks. And then I went back and I read what I had written, and I was like, oh, this is terrible. And so I got stuck. I was like, no, we're just going to have to put it aside for a little while. And so I started writing the romance novel that I did not want to write, that I got pushed into writing, which is by far probably the most popular book that I have. And I still think that it's probably not my best work, but everybody tells me that it is. And I guess it's just because I'm not comfortable writing that particular genre. It's been fun, let me tell you.
well, I don't, that just talks about your level of expertise for you to just take a book and go out of here. I mean, that is something that everybody listening could really take heed about, because we get so attached to our words and the thought of throwing them out. I mean, really, it does really, in the end, it doesn't do us a service. So that's pretty amazing. So these people who are waiting for this final book, it's going to be pretty good that that you had to throw one of them away. Okay, so we got
two more books.
2 more books. Wow. Now, is that the series that I'm hearing about that's going to be, is it going to be turned into something on TV or a movie, or who was saying something? Somebody was saying something about that. No?
The Ghost Files was the Ghost Files series. It has been optioned for film. We almost had the funding last year, but it fell through. So the producer who has it, he worked on the Showtime series Dexter. He is hopeful that he thinks that he's found a new funding source, I guess you could say, because you can't make a movie without money, apparently. And I have learned through the entire process that patience is the key to everything. Hollywood moves slower than homemade sin. It is ridiculous. So we are waiting to see what happens there. So hopefully it will get turned into a film.
Yeah.
Depends on if we find the money.
Yeah. Well,
it's fun. It's fun. We've had some fun times with it. I've met some really nice people, talked to some really great producers and directors. And I got to chat with Jackson Rathbone, Jasper from Twilight. He enjoys the series. That was cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think my Twitter fans kind of ganged up on him, though, when he tweeted at me. I felt sorry for him. They went a little nuts on him.
Yay, the fans.
They went a little nuts on him.
That sounds cool.
That's the one thing I can say. The Ghost Files fans that I have, they are ridiculously loyal. And they all came from Wattpad.
Oh,
when
wow.
I first wrote the series, I did the whole agent thing, wrote up the little query letter, polished it up, and I went and I read through all the agent profiles and figured out, who likes what, you go through their profiles and your pages and you figure out, oh, well, let me mention this because this person likes this, you tailor it. And I probably sent out a good 30 to 50 letters, all tailored to the particular agent, and they all came back. No, it's no good. One actually told me it wasn't worth the paper that it was written on.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh.
So, I was actually getting ready to delete the whole thing.
Wow.
And a friend of mine says, well, why don't you put it up on Wattpad? Which I knew what Wattpad was because I had put a previous book up there, but I never really messed with it any. So I was like, okay. And I threw it up, and I think within 30 days, we had over 1 million reads on the book.
Wow.
And I will say that my fan base actually was built on the Wattpad platform. And the YA readers on there are probably the most loyal fans you will ever meet. Everything, all the success that I have today, I owe to Wattpad. From the people at Wattpad HQ who, were great and they helped out and they put the book up on the featured list, to the readers. I mean, without your readers, you don't have anything at all. Yep. And those readers on there are fabulous. I love them.
Wow.
So it just went a little nuts. And I had agents coming back, oh, yeah, we want the book now. Yeah, we want the book now that it has over 1 million reads on it. Mm-hmm. And you couldn't even remember the characters' names.
Sure.
But, I gave it to our publisher, Limitless Publishing, small publisher. They've grown quite a bit since we joined them. They really have. They have, over 200 authors now or something like that?
Yeah, they're pretty big now.
They had less than 50 when I think I joined. Jonahthan, I think, was one of the first people that they signed on.
I think I was like the 4th or 5th author, that got signed on by Limitless when they started.
Yeah, but, I gave them the books. They ran with it. They helped with all the marketing, and it just turned into this big, crazy mess. And people like it, so I'm happy.
Well, I guess we have to end there, you guys, because we have less than a minute, and we're going to get cut off. So, we've ended with a bang, and Apryl proved that you can do it no matter what they tell you. So just keep pushing on, folks. And I just want to thank both